Notwithstanding, I have a few things against thee, because thou sufferest that woman Jezebel, which calleth herself a prophetess, to teach and to seduce my servants to commit fornication and to eat things sacrificed unto idols. So did you see a familiar name there? Yes, Jezebel. If you're halfway familiar with the Bible or the Old Testament, you've heard of Jezebel. Not many people name their kids Jezebel because she was a very, very wicked woman. I did actually have a distant cousin who was named Jezebel. Very interesting. They called her Jessie for short, but that don't really make no difference here. But Jezebel, she was from the city of Tyre, and Tyre was a trading port city, a very important city in Old Testament times. And the king Ahab of Israel married her probably as an economic alliance. So you can see this economic alliance, a compromise being made. A Jewish king who worships Jehovah, or is supposed to, marries a woman, a princess from Tyre. Now, she was not just any princess, she was also a priestess. She was a priestess of the god Baal, the gods Baal and Ashtaroth. And she actually introduced idol worship into the nation of Israel. So the parallels here are very interesting. You've got Thyatira. It's a trade city. There's many guilds there. To get involved in the guilds, you have to eat things sacrificed to idols, and you have to commit fornication. There's always gross sexual acts associated with these pagan rites and ceremonies. You find that all through the Old Testament. There was always the temples, and then you'd have sodomites, as they were called, depending on your translation, associated with that temple, or temple prostitute. That's what that was. So in order to be involved in these trade guilds in Thyatira, you had to be involved in their sexual rites. And so it's very interesting that Jezebel is a symbol of this time period that is covered in Thyatira. And if you're wondering what I talk about regarding the seven churches being a history of the Christian church, I invite you to go back and look at the Intro to Revelation playlist and look at the keys there and look at historicism. See what historicism is all about. Look at the other methods of interpretation, futurism and preterism. We follow historicism in this study. Also, notice the one key is understanding the Old Testament. The book of Revelation has more references and echoes and quotes of the Old Testament than there are verses in the entire book. So Jezebel, let's unpack her just a little bit. A woman in Bible prophecy always represents a church. Okay, you've got two women in Revelation, a pure one and a corrupt one. You look at Revelation 12, you've got the true church. It's associated with Jesus. Revelation 17, you've got Mystery Babylon, the harlot woman. She's the false church. It's interesting, there's two different kinds of women in the book of Proverbs also. But going back to women being represented as a church, there's many Bible references I will list in the description, and I will post some right here for you. But the key one is in Ephesians 5:25. We know that one. It's, husbands, love your wives, even as Christ loved the church and gave himself for it. The church is referred to many times as the bride of Christ. So if you have a prostitute woman or an unfaithful woman in Bible prophecy, that would be an unfaithful church. Now, look at Jezebel. She is political. She's a queen, right? She's a queen of Israel. She was a princess of Tyre and a queen of Israel. She's also religious. She was a priestess of Baal and Ashtaroth. She introduced idol worship into the land of Israel. Also notice that she was married to King Ahab for economic purposes, for political purposes also. So, in the last church, Pergamos, you had Balaam and Balak. Balaam was an apostate religious figure. Balak was a pagan king who wanted stability in his empire. And that perfectly represented what went on during the Constantine era. You have Constantine, who was a pagan king. Yes, he got baptized before he died and maybe believed some things about Christianity, and some of his family members did, but he was a pagan king. He worshipped Mithras. You just got to look at some coins that are still in circulation. Look at the Arch of Constantine. Constantine was a pagan, and what did he do? He introduced Christianity into the empire because he needed stability. Christianity brought stability to the empire because they could not snuff Christianity out. As the famous early Christian Tertullian once said, he said, "The more you kill us, the more we grow. The blood of Christians is seed." And so because they could not stamp out Christianity, and Constantine saw that it would be advantageous to allow religious freedom and allow Christianity as a religion, and ultimately it became the state religion. This is a perfect example of Balaam and Balak in the previous church of Pergamos. But I want you to see the progression from Pergamos to Thyatira. Thyatira, you got it all in one person. You got it in Jezebel. She has church and state together within her. She is a church power in that she was a priestess of Baal, and she was a political power in that she was a princess of Tyre and a queen of Israel. So church and state is combined in one. Notice she's also getting people to worship idols. And if you read in 1 Kings 16 all the way through 20 or so, you'll find that Jezebel was kind of in charge of the prophets of Baal and Ashtaroth, and that she also murdered the prophets of God. For some reason, Elijah was scared of her and went running after he just got through slaughtering many priests of Baal. I don't know. Maybe she was a scary lady too. But here you've got a perfect symbol in Revelation, and it lines up perfectly with the time period that would be covered in Jezebel. Church and state wrapped up together in one woman representing an apostate church. Now let's look and see what the next verse says. "And I gave her space to repent of her fornication, and she repented not." So this is a key text, even though it's a small one. It says he gave her space to repent of her fornication, but she repented not. So this fornication, what is this? This is unlawful sexual intimate relations. What kind of unlawful relations does a church have? Well, they're not being intimate with the bridegroom, Christ. They're finding someone else to support them. In this case, it was the state. The church began relying on the state for power rather than upon Christ for power. Benjamin Franklin famously said, "I am suspicious of any church that needs the government to prop it up. I'm suspicious of its power." And I agree with him. So here we have an unfaithful bride going after another lover, secular government. But it says that she was given space to repent of her fornication. What does that mean? The key is to go back to the Old Testament. We know that in that famous story about Ahab and Jezebel and the prophet Elijah, do you remember how long Elijah shut up the heavens to where it didn't rain? 3.5 years. That's how long he did it. You can read that in James chapter 5, verse 7. He references it, that it rained not for 3.5 years. Now, in the days of Israel, a year was 360 days. If you do 360 times 3.5, you come out to 1260. This 1260-year time period is mentioned in reference to the Antichrist power 7 times in the Bible. 7 times in the Bible, it refers to the same time period. It's a very crucial time period in church history. And you can find it in Daniel chapter 7, verse 25. Also Daniel chapter 12, verse 10. And then also Revelation chapter 11, verse 2, Revelation 11, verse 3, Revelation 12, 6, also 12, 14, and then also 13, 5. So 1260 is a key time period. And it's very interesting that the literal Jezebel of the Old Testament was given 1260 literal days to repent of her fornication. Now, in Bible prophecy, a day equals a year. Days are symbolic. And here's the verses to prove that right here. So continuing on, we look at the old story. Did Jezebel repent? No. After it rained, she wanted to kill Elijah. So here, this modern apostate church state, it says he gave them time to repent. Would they repent? No, they did not repent.